Have you ever said something and instantly wished you could take it back? Have you ever felt that a single moment of silence could have saved an entire relationship? Or wondered why some people speak so little yet carry such unshakable influence? In a world that rewards noise, mastering the art of silence might just be your greatest advantage. There are moments when you look back and realize that staying quiet would have been the wiser choice. One unfiltered comment, one impulsive outburst, and suddenly you've altered the course of a conversation, damaged trust, or missed out on something meaningful. We live in a time where everyone is desperate to be heard in social media, in meetings, even in casual conversations, yet very few understand the true strength that comes from holding your tongue. Silence, when intentional, isn't weakness, it's power. But learning to harness this power demands more than simple willpower. It requires real mastery of your thoughts, your emotions, and your ego. That's why Stoicism has stood the test of time. It wasn't created for passive people or those who wanted to escape reality. It was built for warriors of the mind, for those who seek clarity amid chaos, who choose discipline over impulse, and who are willing to speak only when their words carry weight. Stoicism doesn't tell you to run from conflict. It shows you how to face it without losing yourself. If you've ever walked away from a conversation and thought, "Why did I say that?" then this message is meant for you. Because in this journey, you're not just going to learn how to hold your tongue, you'll discover how to turn your voice into a tool for truth, not trouble. Let's start with the first and most underrated principle. Listen more, speak less. Picture yourself in a conversation where you're finally opening up, sharing something close to your heart, and the person across from you interrupts with, "Oh yeah, I've experienced that too," before launching into their own story. Sound familiar? Today, it feels like everyone's auditioning for attention, but very few are truly listening. Scroll your phone and you'll find people yelling to be seen. Watch me. Hear me. Follow me, yet silence, the act of being present without needing to dominate, is rare and remarkable. In the Stoic worldview, listening isn't a passive act, it's a show of restraint, awareness, and strength. Like a skilled martial artist who doesn't flail but waits, watches, and strikes only when it matters, a good listener doesn't speak to fill space, they stay silent to make space. There's a story I want to tell you because it says more about power than 1,000 speeches. Dave, a rideshare driver in the heart of Manhattan, wasn't one for small talk. One day, a woman entered his car looking drained, her eyes red, her shoulders slumped. For 40 whole minutes, Dave said nothing but, "Good morning." He gently placed a bottle of water in the cup holder, turned off the radio, and occasionally glanced at the rearview mirror to check on her. When they arrived, she got out, leaving behind a small folded note that read, "I just lost my father. Thank you for letting me sit in silence. This ride was the kindest thing I've experienced all week." Dave never said a word, yet he said everything that needed to be said. Listening is not about waiting for your turn to speak. It's about honoring the presence of someone else. It means asking, "Do you mean this?" instead of assuming. It means letting silence linger when it's sacred, instead of rushing in with chatter just to fill the air. Good listeners don't jump to conclusions. They don't offer unsolicited advice. They remain open. They ask thoughtful questions. In a meeting, they might say the least, but understand the most. In friendships, they're the ones people return to when things get real. A brilliant salesperson doesn't just talk benefits, they ask about needs. A great doctor doesn't just write prescriptions. They listen to the fear hiding behind symptoms. And a real friend isn't always the one who solves your problems. They're the one who can sit beside you in stillness and remind you that you're not alone. Want a quick way to train your listening muscles? For 1 week, track how often you ask questions versus how often you share opinions. If you're asking more than you're speaking, you're growing. Try letting the other person speak for 70% of the conversation. You'll start noticing something magical. People don't always need answers, they just need someone to understand. And the better you get at listening, the less you'll feel the need to prove yourself through words. When clarity enters, confusion leaves. When you understand fully, you stop arguing about fragments. Those with true influence don't speak endlessly, they speak intentionally. What's astonishing is how listening to others actually opens a window into your own soul. You catch yourself preparing to interrupt, waiting for your turn to tell your story. You notice the ego creeping in, that mental script whispering, "Now it's your moment." Catching that? That's awareness. That's transformation. That's you choosing connection over competition. Epictetus once said, "Nature gave us one tongue and two ears so we could hear twice as much as we speak." That's not just a cute quote. It's a blueprint for powerful communication. The real question is, are you living by that designer, or are you living in reverse? Because when you start holding back your words and leaning into real listening, you'll realize that the greatest obstacle isn't your mouth, it's your mind. The battle isn't external, it's internal. Most of the regretful things you say don't come from ignorance. They're driven by unchecked emotion. And the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you can reclaim your power, one conversation at a time. Here's the truth no one wants to admit until it's too late. Words, once spoken, can never be taken back. They may seem harmless in the moment, tossed out in anger, fear, or frustration, but their consequences can echo far longer than you ever intended. And most of the time, it's not logic that launches these verbal arrows, it's emotion, raw and unchecked. That's why learning to control your emotions before you speak isn't just wise, it's essential. Think about Ithao. Many times have you said something in anger, only to regret it deeply minutes later. Maybe you lashed out at someone you love. Maybe you let a secret slip in a moment of pride or pain, only to damage a relationship you spent years building. These aren't rare mistakes. They happen every single day to all of us. Stoicism doesn't ask you to bite your tongue forever. It asks you to pause long enough to see clearly. It reminds you that true freedom isn't saying whatever you feel, it's having the strength not to. Emotional control is the difference between being a master of your words or a prisoner of your impulses. And if you've ever found yourself saying, "I didn't mean it, I was just mad," then you already know the cost. There's a story you need to hear. John, a calm, respected manager in a Chicago tech firm, had built a solid reputation over the years. But during one heated meeting, his boss called him out harshly in front of the entire team. John, overwhelmed with frustration, snapped. He raised his voice, pointed fingers, and accused his boss of being unfair. The room froze. That afternoon, John was quietly removed from his leadership role. The painful irony? He wasn't wrong in what he felt, only in how he reacted. Had he taken a breath, paused for 3 seconds, everything might have been different. That pause? That's what Stoicism teaches you to build. It's the space between impulse and outcome. It's where your power lives. Neuroscience confirms what the Stoics have always known. When your emotions spike, your brain's rational center shuts down. The amygdala, the part responsible for fear and anger, hijacks your thinking. Your intelligence drops. You literally become less capable of sound judgment. So when you speak from that place, you're not speaking from your true self, you're reacting from your wounded self. Ask yourself, do you want to be the mouthpiece of your rage, your sadness, your anxiety? Or do you want your words to reflect clarity, not chaos? Emotional control doesn't mean burying your feelings. It means recognizing them, understanding them, and choosing your response rather than being ruled by your reaction. One powerful way to do this is by labeling your emotions precisely. Don't just say, I'm angry. Say, I feel rejected, or I feel overlooked. Naming your feelings activates your reasoning mind, gives you distance, and lets you respond from awareness rather than from a storm. Another strategy comes from psychology. If you're tempted to explode, write it down by hand. Don't type. Writing slows your brain down, forces structure onto your chaos. Often, by the time you finish, you'll see things more clearly and realize there's nothing helpful in saying what you originally wanted to shout. Abraham Lincoln used this method. When furious with someone, he'd write a brutally honest letter, then file it away, never sent. It was his personal release valve. They called them letters of venting. It wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It was his way of reclaiming peace without sacrificing dignity. You can also train your brain through small, physical anchors. For example, when emotions rise, touch your fingertips together or exhale slowly through your mouth. These gestures act as internal signals like pressing a mental brake. They remind your body, this is not the moment to fire back. These aren't just quirky habits. They're powerful tools to protect your integrity in moments when it's easiest to lose it. Think about the last time you regretted your words. Was it because you didn't know better or because your emotions got the better of you? This distinction matters. Most damage isn't done from lack of knowledge. It's done in seconds of emotional blindness. In those seconds, they can alter your life. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a professional setting, or even a moment online, your response in emotional heat can either build bridges or burn them forever. The Stoics were clear. Don't speak when you're angry. Don't explain when you're hurting. Don't react while your mind is still storming. These aren't just wise suggestions. They're survival strategies. Because the price of speaking too soon is almost always higher than the price of staying silent a little longer. So here's your challenge. Next time you feel a surge of anger or anxiety or defensiveness, do one thing first. Pause. Breathe. Say nothing for 5 seconds. Touch your anchor. Name your feeling. Ask yourself, will this help or will this harm? That tiny pause is your power. And the more you practice it, the stronger you become. Mastering your words begins with mastering your emotions. Because when your emotions don't control your speech begins to control your life in the best possible way. There's a subtle habit many of us carry without realizing it's speaking as soon as we think. We tell ourselves it's being real, being transparent, being authentic. But blurting out everything that crosses your mind isn't clarity, it's chaos. And if you want to live with presence, discipline, and peace, you need to learn a simple but powerful principle. Speak less than you think. Some people mistake silence for suppression, believing that holding back their words means they're not being true to themselves. But the truth is, speaking without reflection doesn't make you real. It makes you reactive. Wisdom isn't measured by how often you speak, but by how intentionally you choose your words. Imagine this, you're having coffee with friends, and one of them opens up, saying they're considering a career shift. Before they can finish, someone interrupts with, "Honestly, that's a terrible idea right now." Another adds, "I'm just being honest." Suddenly, the conversation shifts. What began as vulnerability becomes judgment. And just like that, the person shuts down. They nod, smile politely, and retreat. Not because they changed their mind, but because they no longer feel safe. The damage? Subtle but lasting. Maybe they'll never open up to that group again. This happens all the time. We say what we think, thinking it's honesty, when really it's ego disguised as advice. The truth is, a statement, no matter how accurate, loses its value when delivered at the wrong time, in the wrong tone, or to the wrong person. Stoics don't stay silent because they have nothing to say. They stay silent because they understand the cost of speaking. Every word you utter expends energy. It can cost you your peace, your privacy, your credibility. And the wiser you become, the less eager you are to waste that currency. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That sounds harsh, but what he meant was, stop trying to impress people with your opinions. Stop speaking to be seen. There's power in being underestimated, there's peace in being quiet, and there's strength in being okay with silence. Let me share a story with you. Thomas, a sharp-minded financial analyst, had a reputation for being blunt, decisive, and quick with critique. In one team meeting, his boss presented a new strategy that had holes in it. Thomas, unable to hold back, interrupted and pointed out every flaw. He was right. His logic was sound, but his delivery? Brutal, public, and without tact. A few weeks later, he was quietly removed from a major project. No explanation, just silence. When he asked why, the response was simple. "We need someone who fits the culture." Thomas didn't lose his role because he was wrong. He lost it because he was right too loudly, too fast, and at the wrong time. That experience humbled him. From then on, he developed a rule. Before any meeting, he wrote down his thoughts, waited 10 minutes, then asked himself, "Am I saying this to help her, to prove I'm smart?" If the answer leaned toward ego, he stayed quiet. And something changed. When Thomas did speak, people listened. Not because he talked more, but because he talked better. His silence began to signal depth, not doubt. You can build this too. Try this technique. When an idea enters your mind, pause. Don't say it right away. Instead, imagine each word you speak costs real money. Would you still spend it? Would you still say it? Probably not. Most thoughts don't need to be spoken, they need to be sorted. Give yourself a buffer, just 3 seconds between thought and speech. In that pause, ask, is this moment the right one? Is this thought ready? Is this person the right audience? A small pause can completely shift the tone of a conversation. Have you ever felt exhausted after oversharing? Like you gave away a part of yourself you now have to defend or explain? That's the hidden pressure of speaking too much. Every time you express a dream, an idea, a struggle, you expose it to judgment. And if it's not fully formed, that judgment can derail your growth. Keeping a piece of your thoughts just for yourself doesn't mean you're hiding. It means you're protecting. You're letting your ideas develop in peace before placing them in the spotlight. Silence isn't emptiness, it's armor. It protects your boundaries, your clarity, and your mental space. Are you speaking because it's needed or because you're afraid of being forgotten? Because here's the truth. You don't need to talk to prove you exist. You don't need to announce to be valuable. The right silence will shield you from misunderstanding, drama, and energy leaks. Before you share your next big plan, remember ideas are like seeds. Speak them too soon, and the wind might carry them away. Let them root in silence. Let them grow strong before the world sees them. That's why Stoics are cautious about sharing personal plans, not out of secrecy, but out of wisdom. The fewer people who know your next move, the fewer expectations you have to meet, and the freer you are to pivot, adjust, or change course without shame. So, next time you feel the urge to speak up, pause. In that space, you'll find your power. Let's face it, talking about your dreams can feel exhilarating. Sharing plans gives you a rush, a sense that progress is already in motion. But here's the hidden danger. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to actually do it. This isn't just anecdotal, it's psychological. When you announce your goals, your brain experiences a small burst of satisfaction, a premature sense of achievement. It tricks you into believing you've already taken a step forward when in fact, you're standing still. That's why Stoics caution us to guard our plans. Not because people will steal them, but because sharing too early steals from ourselves. Think about the last time you saw someone post, "This year, I'm launching a business," or "I'm finally writing that book." It sounds inspiring, right? But fast forward 6 months. Where is it? Often, it vanishes. Not from lack of talent, but from too much talking and not enough doing. Talk is seductive. It offers applause before effort, encouragement before execution. And once you get a taste of that recognition, it's easy to stop chasing the real thing. There's a scene that plays out all too often. You're sitting in a cozy cafe, sipping your usual drink, and you overhear a passionate voice say, "I'm opening a community-driven coffee shop, books, art, real conversation." It sounds fresh, exciting, but 6 months later, you're back in that same cafe, same people, same drink. Different story. The shop was never built. A new idea has taken its place. The cycle continues. Why? Because that person mistook talking for traction. We all do it at some point. We announce, plan, and rehearse out loud. But action? That part gets lost in the noise. The Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, knew the danger of performance. He didn't boast about living simply, just lived that way. He didn't proclaim discipline, he practiced it silently. And that's the key. Real change doesn't need an audience, it needs action. Picture your energy as a tree. You can either use your strength to grow deep, unseen roots, or you can shake your branches so others believe you're growing. Which one sustains life? Only one. Here's a story that might hit home. Jake, a talented but restless software developer, hated his corporate job. For years, he told friends he was going to build an app, launch a business, and break free. He even created sleek presentations and shared updates online. People were impressed. But for months, not a single line of code was written. Then one day a friend said, "Jake, you're addicted to talking about success, not building it." That hit hard. The next morning, Jake went silent. He deleted his posts, stopped talking, and started coding. 3 months, no updates. 6 months, still quiet. Then one day, his app quietly launched. No hype, no announcement, just action. Jake didn't disappear. He simply redirected his energy, and in the silence, he found momentum. That silence wasn't weakness, it was protection. And that's what Stoicism teaches us. When you guard your plans, you give them space to grow. When you stop performing, you start progressing. Look at Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso. He didn't preach simplicity, he lived it. He sold off the government's luxury fleet, cut his salary, and grew vegetables at the presidential palace. No spotlight, just integrity. And people noticed, because results don't need captions. They speak for themselves. Want to live this out? Try a 30-day silence challenge. No sharing plans, no vague social posts. Every time you want to announce something, pause and write down one concrete step instead. Not because your ideas don't deserve attention, but because they deserve protection first. The truth is, what's sacred needs shelter. Your goals aren't just dreams, they're seedlings. And seedlings don't survive storms. They grow best in quiet. Every time you speak too early, you invite pressure. You invite opinions. You invite distortion. But when you stay silent, you stay focused. You stay free. So ask yourself, are you doing the work or just talking about it? Are your words a mirror of your actions or a mask for inaction? This isn't about staying silent forever. It's about choosing silence until your actions are ready to speak for you. When they do, the world will hear them loud and clear. No need for applause, no need for validation. Just truth solid, unshakable, and undeniable. There's a kind of quiet destruction that happens in everyday conversations, one most people never even notice. It doesn't come from shouting or arguing. It comes from oversharing with the wrong people. You think you're connecting, you think you're building trust, but what you're actually doing is handing someone else the script to your private life and trusting they won't use it against you. In Stoic thinking, guarding your words isn't just about talking less. It's about choosing wisely who you talk to, because not everyone deserves access to your unfiltered self. There's a reason ancient wisdom tells us to protect what's sacred. It's not because we're supposed to walk through life suspicious. It's because human nature is complex and sometimes dangerous. Have you ever sat next to a stranger on a long bus ride and, before you knew it, you were telling them about your family issues, your anxieties, your regrets? That strange freedom of anonymity tempts you to open up. They won't judge. They don't know me, you think. But here's the truth. Because they don't know you, they also have no reason to protect what you said. And that's how information floats freely, passed around without loyalty. In a world that trades in gossip and content, naivety becomes vulnerability. I once knew someone named Mark, a personal trainer, trying to build his reputation. He confided in a friend about his struggles, slow-paying clients, money stress, and an idea for a new gym concept. That friend listened, nodded, and a few months later opened his own gym right next door. Same niche, same approach. It wasn't coincidence, it was strategy built on borrowed honesty. Mark's casual disclosures turned into competitive ammunition, and it didn't stop there. Offhand comments like, "I'm not sure I can make it another month," began spreading, scaring away clients and even potential investors. Mark wasn't weak, he was unguarded. And unguarded people bleed information in places they shouldn't. This doesn't just happen in business, it happens at work. When you vent to a colleague and suddenly notice your manager treating you differently. It happens in families, when something shared in confidence becomes a weapon in an argument. It happens online when vulnerability is paraded for validation and later twisted by people who never cared about your healing in the first place. So what's the solution? Not complete silence, but calibrated speech. Train yourself to filter. Before speaking, ask, will this make me stronger or give someone leverage over me? If the answer isn't clear, stay silent. Everything you say becomes part of a story that may be retold in rooms you'll never enter. And once you've handed someone the raw material, you can't control how they'll shape the narrative. That's why protecting your inner world isn't paranoia strategy. Try applying what I call the 3-time appearance rule. Before confiding anything personal, ask, has this person shown up for me at least 3 times? Once in joy, once in pain, once in stillness. If not, they haven't earned the right to hear what's beneath the surface. Everyone can smile during your wins. But those who stay silent when there's nothing to gain, those are the ones you can trust. Look at how CEOs guard sensitive information. It's not that they don't trust their team sits, that they know leaks happen, and usually not from enemies, but from careless mouths that didn't understand the weight of the information they carried. Your life, your dreams, your struggles, they're all works in progress. Don't let someone judge the prototype and decide your worth. Your silence is a boundary. Your discretion is a defense. The Bible gives this chilling wisdom. Do not cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to tear you apart. That verse doesn't suggest your truth isn't valuable. It warns you that not everyone has the character to handle it. So, ask yourself, who knows your story? And more importantly, have they earned it? Are they listening to understand, or waiting to use your words when the timing benefits them? One day, you may realize that the person who knows the most about you barely understands you at all, and the one who understands you deeply doesn't need to know everything. That's the power of true connection. When someone sees you clearly without needing constant explanation, you've found someone rare. Silence, then, isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's wisdom wrapped in restraint. But how do you know when silence is strength and when it becomes isolation? The answer might surprise you. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a conscious decision, a deliberate act that often demands more strength than speaking ever could. In today's noisy world, where microphones are always on and attention is currency, choosing to stay quiet is nothing short of radical. Everyone wants to respond, to defend, to correct, to prove, but only a few are strong enough to pause and simply walk away. Think about it. Have you ever stood in a room where someone lied about you, insulted you, or twisted your words, and you just stood there, eyes steady, mouth closed? That moment didn't feel good. It felt like fire under your skin. But that silence? It echoed louder than any argument you could have started. It told the world, I don't need to defend what I know is true. That kind of restraint isn't weakness. It's self-mastery. Stoic philosophy is built on this principle. Marcus Aurelius, one of the wisest emperors who ever lived, rarely spoke to impress others. His greatest writings were personal reflections, not public declarations. In one powerful line, he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't retaliate. Don't lower yourself to someone else's level. Let your silence be the boundary they can't cross. There's a strange truth in life. People don't remember the loudest voices. They remember the quietest presence. The coworker who stayed calm in a storm. The friend who didn't interrupt your pain with advice. The person who did their work without fanfare but whose results couldn't be ignored. Words fade, energy stays. And energy is shaped most when we're not reacting to the world, but responding to it with calm intention. There's a fear that haunts many of us, the fear of being misunderstood. If I don't speak up, they'll think I'm weak, passive, indifferent. But here's the twist. Silence breeds mystery, and mystery carries weight. When you don't reveal everything, people are forced to guess, and in that uncertainty, you gain a subtle kind of control. You're no longer reactive. You're unreadable. And in a world that demands instant opinions, being unreadable is power. So how do you practice this kind of silence in real life without becoming cold or distant? Start small. When someone you love brings up the past, and your instinct is to defend yourself, don't hold their hand. Listen. Let the silence speak your intention. When a coworker throws shade in a meeting, don't meet it with sarcasm or explanation. Just nod, stay poised, and present your point with clarity. That contrast, it will echo louder than any rebuttal. David, a designer I once worked with, had his idea stolen during a pitch. Another teammate presented it as their own and got all the praise. David stayed silent. No drama, no confrontation. A week later, when the team turned to that person for details, they stumbled. Because the soul of the idea didn't live in Thamit, lived in David. Quietly, he stepped in, answered with clarity, and reclaimed the space without ever needing to say, "That was mine." That moment changed how people saw him, not just as smart, but as deeply grounded. Silence isn't just powerful, it's unforgettable. And sometimes, silence is medicine. We've all had days where we feel the need to express every irritation, to voice every offense, to let the world know what's wrong. But there's deep healing in stillness. In Taoism, they call it Wu Wei Nan, action that's fully aware. You're not avoiding, you're processing at a deeper level. Try this challenge. Spend one day in silence. No defending, no proving. No vague posts aimed at someone. Just observe. Track every time you wanted to speak and didn't, and at the end of the day ask, would my words have actually helped or just satisfied my ego? You may be surprised at how often silence was the better answer. Maybe you're not the most eloquent speaker. That's okay. You don't need perfect words to make a lasting impact. You just need restraint. Because when you speak less, what you do say carries weight. And people begin to notice it not because you shouted, but because you didn't need to. Don't waste your voice proving your worth to people who don't value it. Save it for moments that matter. For people who listen. For truths that shape. Silence is power, but only if you're strong enough to hold it. And if you've ever stayed silent when every part of you wanted to shout, and later felt stronger for it, then you already know how powerful you really are. There's a universal desire inside nearly all of us. The need to be seen, to be recognized, to be valued for what we're working toward. And too often, that desire pushes us to speak before we act. We announce our goals, explain our decisions, share our dreams, hoping that by doing so, we'll earn respect or accountability. But here's the trap: when you speak too soon, especially before your work is done, you risk trading action for applause. And that applause might just rob you of the momentum you need to actually finish what you started. In the world of Stoicism, silence before achievement isn't about secrecy, it's about energy preservation. Every time you speak a plan, you release a bit of the fuel that was meant to move you forward. And the more you explain or justify, the more of that fuel you burn without making progress. Why is this such a common trap? Because when you share your vision, people nod. They say, "That's amazing," or "You've got this." Your brain releases dopamine, a reward chemical, and suddenly you feel like you've already accomplished something. But you haven't. You've just created the illusion of progress. Now, that illusion competes with the real work. Think back. How many times have you said, "I'm going to learn a language," or "I'm writing a book," only to feel less motivated a few days later? It's not because you were lazy. It's because the early praise tricked your mind into believing the job was already underway. The Stoics knew better. They didn't waste words trying to convince others. They let their lives do the talking. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Look how humble I am." He just lived simply. Epictetus didn't post about discipline, he embodied it. This principle applies now more than ever. Social media invites us to declare everything: our next move, our goals, our workouts, our side hustles. And yet, the most powerful people are often the quietest. Not because they don't have big plans, but because they know real results require real focus. It's like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to prove it's growing. You water it, you nurture it, and when the time is right, it breaks the surface strong, undeniable. Your goals are no different. They need quiet. They need protection from early judgment, unsolicited advice, and unnecessary pressure. When you speak too soon, you invite timelines and opinions that may not serve your process. Silence isn't avoidance. It's discipline. It's trusting your path without needing validation at every step. And most people can't do it not because they lack ambition, but because they crave reassurance more than they crave results. But when you learn to stay silent, something shifts. You build inner strength. You stop needing to prove yourself. You start believing that your work, when finished, will speak so clearly that words won't be necessary. That's what separates those who dream out loud from those who deliver in silence. The former seek recognition. The latter create impact. So before you announce your next project or explain your latest idea, pause. Ask yourself, do I want applause or do I want completion? Because only one will move you forward. And when the time comes and your achievement is undeniable, you won't need to say anything. The results will speak volumes. And that kind of recognition, the kind built on proof, not promises, the kind that lasts. So next time you're tempted to share a plan, pause. Ask yourself honestly, what would happen if you kept this to yourself? Would the silence protect the clarity of your vision? Would the stillness help you focus more and prove less? Most of us don't realize just how much energy we waste trying to explain ourselves to people who are not ready to understand, or worse, are not even listening. There is a sacred space between the spark of an idea and the day it's fully formed. That space is meant for action, not applause. When you speak too soon, you risk letting the world shape something that isn't strong enough yet to stand on its own. You let others weigh in before your foundation is firm. And if they misunderstand you, criticize you, or simply don't care, you begin to doubt what was once crystal clear. That's the cost of premature sharing. Your inner voice gets drowned by outer noise. The one who controls their words is the one who's truly in control of their life. And that's where all real value begins. What if, instead of constantly updating others, you gave yourself permission to go silent and go deep? What if your greatest breakthroughs happen not in what you say, but in what you commit to without saying a word? Because silence is not absence, it's presence. It's where you learn who you are when no one's watching. When you stop broadcasting every move, you begin to feel the power of inner alignment. There's no pressure to prove, no rush to announce, only the steady rhythm of quiet work. And when that work finally speaks, it speaks with undeniable weight. People will notice, not because you ask them to, but because your results leave a mark. Think about the times in your life when someone surprised you, not with their words, but with their growth. They didn't talk about changing. They just changed. They didn't warn you they were evolving. One day, you just saw it. That kind of transformation doesn't come from noise, it's born in silence. And it's the most powerful kind of change there is. It's time we learn that quiet is not the opposite of strength. It is the source of it. The more we grow, the less we need to announce. The more we understand, the less we need to explain. And the more grounded we become, the more we realize that impact doesn't require volume. It requires truth. Words can build or destroy, but the words that truly shape lives, the ones that carry power, the ones that heal, the ones that inspire, are spoken from a place of clarity and restraint. And that clarity, it only comes when we stop talking long enough to hear it rise from within. So protect your words, guard your energy, and trust that what's real doesn't need to be proven, it only needs to be lived. If this journey through Stoic wisdom sparks something in you, if it reminded you of your own strength, your own depth, your own calling to live with more intention, then honor that spark. Don't let it fade in the noise. Don't let it be drowned by distractions. Nurture it in silence. Feed it with discipline. And when the time is right, let it roar, not with words, but with your life. Let your character speak louder than your commentary. Let your choices speak louder than your opinions. Let your legacy speak for you when you no longer need to say anything at all. Because ultimately, that's what Stoicism offers. Not just a set of ideas, but a way of being. A way of moving through the world with grace, restraint, and unwavering purpose. It teaches you to stay grounded in chaos, to choose substance over noise, and to master the only thing you ever truly control, yourself. And that self, when disciplined and aligned, becomes a force that doesn't need to shout to be heard. So as you walk forward from this moment, carry with you these 7 lessons, not as rules, but as reminders. Listen more than you speak. Control your emotions before they control you. Speak less than you think. Guard your plans from premature exposure. Choose your confidants wisely. Embrace the power of silence. And let your achievements, not your announcements, do the talking. Every time you choose silence over noise, depth over performance, and purpose over approval, you are building something unshakable. And if you ever find yourself doubting whether you're on the right path, remember this. True progress doesn't need applause. It simply needs consistency. Your silence is not a void. It's a vessel. And what you fill it with, wisdom, work, and quiet strength, will echo louder than anything you could ever say. If this message found you at the right time, give it a quiet like. Not because I need validation, but because someone else might be searching for this moment of stillness, just like you were. Drop a comment if you've experienced the power of silence in your own life. And don't forget to subscribe, and not just for more content, but for more reminders that your power doesn't lie in what you say. It lies in how you choose to live, especially when no one's watching. Thank you for walking this path with me. Your journey to self-mastery has already begun, and what's coming next will carry you even further. Until then, walk quietly, walk boldly, and let your life speak.